Yo, 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 what is going on, RoK Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder. And today we are taking a look on kind of continuing and maybe getting closer to the end of this brief impromptu series, which is looking at now Zone 3 and what the ideal setup there is. Again, continuing along with the same premise that we've been doing for the past two videos, which is when you're going into a new kingdom, right, what are the best ways to keep the most amount of players active and retained over a period of time, and thereby alliances as well within realistic means based on the finite resources that we have, to where you can bring forth the most amount of activity as well and really be creative by thinking outside the box and how you can best utilize and be as efficient. So we're going to touch on Zone 3, and we may even a little bit towards the end of the video talk about kind of how that plays into KVK, or maybe just work that in the middle to kind of have this be a 2-for-1. Before we get started, as always, if you guys enjoy the content, and gals, make sure you sub, like, ring the notification bell, and if you want to join and be a part of our conversation, hit up the Discord. You can find a comment, pinned comment, link in the pinned comment / description down below. Words are hard this morning. All right. So we're in Zone 3. Let's brief TLDR from where we left off on the previous video is that when you're in Zone 2, you are looking to, right, where we talked about doing the 1/3 split, right? You have one alliance that goes into Zone 2, one alliance each gets a 1/3 territory allocated to them, and then from there they're able to also bring in other alliances that can kind of position themselves in between the passes as kind of a midpoint, so that way they have some breathing room to branch out a little bit without having to cross paths or block any gate access from the alliance that has the designated territory, at least, you know, through a sustained period. It's okay for them to swap or something, unless they just want to do a forward drop and then swap the gate for them to get in, or, you know, vice versa. Now, from there, when you get to Zone 3, right, remember there's 9 gates. 1, 2, 3, right, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9. So you got 9 gates in Zone 3. The idea here is that even though you're going to pretty much hopefully bring more than 9 alliances into Zone 2, doesn't mean that each of those alliances are going to get, or anyone beyond 9 is going to be having territory that's specifically allocated to them. You only really want to do it to 9 for the reasons I stated in the previous video. Then we transition to Zone 3, and honestly, you probably want to bring 9 alliances here. I say a good range is 6 to 9. However, in my kingdoms, right, we plan to take 9 into Zone 3, really. And you can view that as an up to or a range from 6 to 9. But I will tell you why I like 9 and why I think more is better than less, for a few reasons. So if you're going to bring in 9, best way to just kind of do it like a pizza slice. Just think about slicing a pizza, right? And you try and give an equal 9 split. Now, some of you may be wondering, well, boss, why would we want to take that many alliances into Zone 3 when, you know, there's finite resources? Well, remember, it's finite resources for the alliances that are gathering RSS deposits. But over time, what you have to consider is that you're going to work on evening those things out. You're going to coordinate with these alliances. So you'll look at where everyone's RSS income is across the board for tiles, and then you'll work on maximizing those efficiencies in Zone 1. Then once you get in Zone 2, and then finally in Zone 3, right, where you're basically splitting things like gold as evenly as you can. So even if you're doing like a 1/9 split, you know, you still want to be as efficient as you can. In either you do something where you have everyone count all the gold tiles ahead of time, and then you work on doing it in a 1/9 split, even if there is some overlap or some extensions here or there that need to be made, just so you can have those numbers be as even as possible. And those are things that you should be working on throughout, right? You want to try and have 9 alliances with like good, even RSS income production spread out throughout the entirety of the map. And then whatever's left over, right, those would end up going to the other alliances. Yes?
Egg.
Yes, I'll make you some eggs. Okay, give me a moment. Thank you, sweetie. Love her face. That's my youngest for now. Okay, so again, doing the pizza slice, right? This is where we end up getting to. Now, after you go through, right, and this is why you have to be working together. The expectation is that you're kind of just not doing these things solo, but you're really trying to coordinate on what your RSS income is going to be. So you're monitoring those things between the 9 alliances going from Zone 2 to Zone 3, based on what you were able to flag out to in Zone 1. Some of the benefits here are that, and this is probably the biggest one, it might be difficult for some to understand this, but it is a lot easier to condense when you have a surplus than it is to expand when, I'm trying to think what's the opposite word of surplus, when there's a scarcity, or let's just say you have not enough resources to do so. And so from there, what it means is that you have more options available to you. There's more flexibility that you're able to work with because you have more alliances to do more things with. Not only that, but you're able to have a higher amount of player activity and retention, and also alliances, because now you have more activity and more retention. You're able to compete more in hopefully a friendly way within your alliance. Number two is that you're now having more players that are active, and because they feel like the kingdom is inclusive of more players, there's a higher percentage chance you're going to get better conversion rates over from home kingdom to KVK, which means more active fighters throughout more of a 24-hour period. In addition to that, you're also developing more shells when you think about it for migration purposes, or even if you're just looking at using more alliances in KVK for whatever kind of tactical or strategical reasons. So that's probably point number 3. And then number 4 is that when you're looking at building good morale within a kingdom, I can't tell you how important this is, because this is very different than just general activity. Morale bleeds into a lot of kind of X factor categories when it comes to how much players engage in a kingdom. How socially engaged are they when it comes to alliance chat, world chat on the Discord? How often are they participating in, maybe if you guys do Discord or in kingdom events? And that in and of itself, when you have great social activity, a lot of people are actively chatting, they're talking, that is kind of the next level, the next stage to where you get to in having good morale within the kingdom that bleeds over into more activity, more contributions, and possibly more fighters as well that will be there. More people on voice throughout the day when you have a KVK going on. I mean, these things are extremely important. One example from one of my projects, actually a few of my projects that I've done across 2 games, there were times where we just had people in voice all day, every day, right? Whether it was KVK or not. And then when KVK came up, for the few I was in there up to that point, you ended up having even more people that joined in voice. Even my home kingdom, where I started off in 1196, I just remember when I was there for a few of the KVKs where I was actually actively paying attention, they had people in voice all day that just varied in numbers, right? And so I think that's what, I think to me those are really good signs that you have, a good, healthy, and active kingdom, at least just on one small area of it, because we know that not every single player, it's not going to be a one-to-one conversion for people that are in the home kingdom that go to Discord. But I do think those are some important things, and that is something that having good activity and good health within the kingdom from how you develop from Zone 1, 2, and then now 3 can play a huge role into how well your kingdom is viewed visually, and then how well you can sustain over a period of time. So for me, when it comes to, gathering, I know it's another kind of hot topic when you have quite a few alliances in Zone 3. Honestly, most of the kingdoms I've played in, as far as actively, even though I've also been in kingdoms where they've only had a couple alliances and you're just like, man, just grab whatever I want, whenever I want. I actually favor having more alliances in Zone 3, because my belief is that if you have more alliances and more active players, it means that tiles are now being gathered immediately, rather than meaning that when they are, more tiles will spawn, right? So the faster you gather before the timer ends up, the more RSS tiles spawn, which means the more overall gathering your kingdom can do versus another, because there's less delay time from when a tile spawns or from when an unoccupied tile is not seen or goes unseen before someone goes to capture it. And that to me is a very appealing stat that I don't think a lot of people really consider. And so I think that's one thing. In addition, right, you'll still get some of those RSS tile numbers in Zone 2. You just get more in Zone 3. And really, it's just the deposit. Same thing with the deposit. You just have a higher concentration of very rich rather than what you're going to get in Zone 2, even though there will be a few, just obviously less. And so, a lot of what we're talking about here is putting the needs of the kingdom above the individual wants of players or alliances, right? Is it a want or is it a need? I want to have this. Okay, but do you need to have this? Very big difference when you think about looking at the situation globally instead of locally, right? And that's something, it's like there's no I in team, right? It's the same thing. You're looking at this from how can we work together as a kingdom as a whole, rather than what do I feel entitled to? What do I want? What do I think I deserve or we deserve? It's one of the reasons why in any of my projects that I run, which my hope always is for one project to be my last, is that, even though we have our group, our family internally, we still work with everyone in the same capacity. There's no ostracizing or ousting, if you will, just because you're not in the group. I just don't believe in that. And I think it's important that you work with everyone in a kingdom, regardless if they're a part of your group or not. Because if you don't, you'll find, unless you're coming in with 18 alliances of your own, and you're going to put 2 or 3 in each province, maybe that's different, right? There's probably a little wiggle room of an exception there. However, I still think it's important to try and have as many active alliances and emerging alliances involved, regardless if they're a part of your family or not, right? I think that's how you build a really good ecosystem within the kingdom. And then I guess that kind of covers it. As far as the very last thing I'll say here, when it comes to Lost Temple and then kind of brief KVK usage, is that you can do this one of 2 ways. You can have each alliance connect or attempt to connect, or you just run a King's Alliance. And in short, a King's Alliance is basically just a farm, a shell alliance that you just attach to here, that you just have management makes alt accounts and then just join that after it's capped. So if you need to, you just temporarily send some big accounts there, you cap LT, and then you just put your farms or your second accounts for management, and that way you have more people that can pull from management rather than the limited 9 spots that each alliance has when they rotate. So again, there's ways to work around. It just depends on what you do. When it comes to KVK, I think the important thing here to remember is that, you can easily take 9 alliances. Remember a few things. 1, not every alliance needs territory. 2, you can divide territory up probably more than you think. 3, when you have more alliances in KVK, you have more opportunities and more options available to you on how to utilize such alliances and such shells. And 4, I would just say think creatively. Don't limit yourself to thinking that what the majority or what the average thing that's done is the only way to go about doing things. Push yourself to be creative. Push yourself to try things. And then if it just comes out at the end of the day, okay, cool, hey, we tried this, doesn't really work. This one way of doing this in this area is the most efficient way. Okay, cool. There's no problem in that. But at least, don't be afraid to kind of try. And be willing to test things, because again, otherwise, we will just stagnate eventually. We all know, 1 + 1 is 2, right? There's no, it's 0 + 2 is 2, right? There's a finite amount of ways to kind of get there. We understand that, and so in certain regards, right? There are going to be a limited amount of ways to get to somewhere, but it doesn't mean we still don't want to try, because at one point we didn't know that, and we had to keep trying it and figuring it out to get to that, even though this is a very watered down example. So with that being said, I hope that helps. And for those that again, I already know there's going to be people on both sides of the aisle where people just kind of been playing RoK for so long that they just think that what I'm explaining right now is just totally ridiculous, and it's just so far out of the norm. And they'd be right. It is definitely, at least on one front, completely out of the norm. And I'm sure to others may sound ridiculous. But if you really separate yourself, or like just take the bias, take the, really be objective to what I'm saying, logically, it makes sense. And I hope that's at least a part that I can appeal to some people, right? Regardless if it's something they would ever try or not, I hope people can at least appreciate the thought process and the logic behind why and how it makes sense, regardless if it's something you would try or not. But I'm still happy to hear, and I would love to hear any of your thoughts, your opinions, right? Whether they be in agreement or not, or indifferent. Please let me know anything down below. And if you know any kingdoms that run 8, 7, 8, 9 alliances in Zone 3, I'd love to hear too as well, just even from your experience on what you've noticed, especially if you've been active and really paying attention, and you participate a lot in Zone 3 for kingdoms that have that many alliances there. Let me know that in the comments down below. That's it for me. Until next time, I'll catch you later.